Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the first installment of something we're calling Prediction Kit here with MetaMask. I'm Eric Mack, and today we're going to be talking prediction markets on MetaMask, and we're going to hear directly from one of the most, if not the most successful trader on Polymarket. Now, MetaMask is relatively new to prediction markets, but our guest has been at it for a little while now, and so I'm going to see if I can pry out a few secrets of his success. He goes by the name Domer, and you might recognize him from his most recent appearance on 60 Minutes, talking a little bit about his success, which we're going to dig into a little bit more now. So, producer Ray, if we can bring Domer out. Domer, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm really excited. The prediction markets we've been working with on MetaMask are one of the more exciting product releases we've had this year. And to try to figure this out and help our users figure it out, we decided to bring on the best. So what can you share, Domer, about who you are and your story?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great that like MetaMask used, but anyway, yeah. So prediction markets, I've been doing it for a very long time. I mean, it since they were, just some tiny thing in a corner of the world, and now it's like, something that's on TV and on the news, and people are talking about and referencing. So it's really exciting, and so yeah, I mean, when I started, there was really just two big events. It was who's the next president going to be, who's going to win Best Picture. It's kind of hard to imagine that these are the only two things that people were really predicting. But yeah, it was a very small thing, and now it's like it's so widespread, and you're predicting so many different events around the world, and it's really exciting to see what this has turned into. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. And so, I mean, I read you've been doing this since like 2007, like you were just talking about back when we were just talking about, maybe it's sports, maybe it's movies, maybe it's politics, a little bit of each, but that's it. So you were using some of like the early betting sites back then?
Yeah. I mean, before any of this even existed, and these sites, it's so long ago that the sites don't even exist anymore. So yeah, so 2007, I quit I had a normal job, regular job, 9 to 5. I would drive home, I would play poker on the side, and I transitioned pretty quickly from poker to like prediction markets. And I was around 2008 that I was starting to do that like full time, and then also obviously corresponded with the presidential election that year as well.
Okay, nice. Well, and between now and then, and I gather, especially in the past couple of years, you've been doing quite well. In fact, one of the nice things about Polymarket and some of these crypto-based markets is there's a lot of transparency. I don't know if you love that or not, but it means that we can see your account. So, like, let's go ahead and bring up the profile here on screen, Ray. So this is you on Polymarket, right? You go by I'm just Ken.
Yep.
Love the reference. And this is a kind of astounding number here. You've made almost 10,000 predictions on Polymarket with a net profit over 2.5 million, including about 100,000 in the past week in profits. I gather yesterday wasn't a great day because it's gone down a bit since I looked at this yesterday.
Yeah, but we're going to get into that. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, let's get into it. What is your approach? I gather, because we can scroll through all the active positions you've got here and so the ones that have closed, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds. I don't know, maybe there's thousands of positions on here. So what is your approach? It seems like a huge volume seems to be a big part of it. I mean, right now you've got almost 800,000 in open positions spread across all these markets. So how are you managing all this?
Yeah, so I mean, so I make a lot of small predictions, right? So of those 10,000, almost 10,000 predictions, probably at least 8,000 are not very big. But so I kind of pick my spots, and you can scroll down and you can see that, as soon as you get past maybe like number 25, they start to get a little bit smaller. But yeah, so I mean, the big market that I'm predicting right now, and the one that a lot of people are trading, and not just in prediction markets, but also in real life, they're trying to figure out is who's going to be the next Fed chair. And that was also why it went down some in the past 24 hours, because the guy that I'm betting against went up in price by like 10% or 20% or something within the past day. So, in real time, my portfolio is fluctuating. Now, whether his odds actually went up in the past, I mean, they went up on the markets, but whether they actually went up in real life, I mean, who knows? So that's one thing about markets is, the price is constantly changing, even if the information underlying it isn't necessarily changing that much.
And when you were on 60 Minutes earlier, they kind of made it sound like your strategy is based on some esoteric knowledge. I mean, the one they highlighted was Trump picking vice presidents that have short names. But I'm, knowing how these interviews are done, I'm guessing they may have cherry picked it to feature the most surprising elements. And so I imagine there's more to your approach. And I can see looking at your profile that there is more. Can you kind of break it down how you think about, where to place your positions?
Yeah, so I would say there's a variety of approaches, and I try to employ all of them. And I think the Vance one is an example of, like, let's say you have 10,000 people trying to predict the exact same thing, and they're all reading the same articles, they're all watching the same news channels. Like, it can be very hard to get an edge on a market like VP, and so you have to kind of think outside the box. And so the Vance thing was accurate. Like, yes, it was an accurate portrayal, but that's obviously a black swan event, something that I was like kind of thinking outside the box, and it ended up working out. What you don't see on TV is I've made 100 of those, and maybe 95 of them have fallen flat on their face or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, and a market like the Federal Reserve Chairman, a lot of thought goes into that. A lot of research goes into that. You're thinking very deeply about the topic, and you're trying to think about it from all angles, because, when you read these articles, because there's pretty much an article every single day. This person's ahead, this person's going to be interviewed, Trump said this, Scott Bessent said this. And so there's constantly news events within this big overarching market that moves the price. Maybe some guy goes up 10 cents one day and 20 cents the next day or whatever. So you have to kind of come up with a baseline pricing that you're kind of trading off of, right? Whether that's opinion based or fact based, or however you're researching it. And then as new information comes in, then you modify your own prices, right? If you're just trying to chase the news or chase what other people are thinking, you're probably going to end up one step behind at some point. So there is a certain degree to which, you have to kind of generate your own opinions. And then as new information comes in, then you modify your own opinions off of that, if that makes sense.
And what kind of sources of information do you rely on to try and get an edge like that?
Well, I mean, so for the Fed, it varies by the market, but like for the Fed share in particular, it's not just political knowledge, because it's such an important position that you also need a little bit of at least familiarity with the economic scenarios that are at play, because the market is more important than what Trump wants. Right? What Trump wants is very important. That's a big factor, and that's going to be moved. But there's also the reality of the situation that the Fed chairman is a very important role. You need someone who's competent. Like, if you put in just some rant, like let's say he nominated his son or whatever, just to use a silly example, right? The stock market would probably go down like 5% that day. It's like, you can't be nominating someone who's not serious for very serious positions. So there's a degree to which politics plays a big role, but then you also have to think about how it plays into markets, how it plays into economics. So there's a lot of different things that you want to be familiar with, other than like the underlying, this thing happened today, this thing will happen tomorrow, et cetera, if that makes sense.
And then, so how do you pick the markets that you want to watch and take positions on? Like, I would assume that you have a certain expertise on certain areas. You're obviously watching the Fed share decision very closely. But it also, then looking at your profile, it also seems like there's a bit of a scattershot, like you're kind of hedging by maybe taking a position on almost everything, or what's going into the thought process there?
Yeah, so I mean, so if you think about Polymarket, right? So I don't know how many markets exist right now. I would say probably over 1,000. So, and that covers the gamut, right? There could be stuff you're seeing my profile there. It's Israel strikes Iran, Wicked versus Avatar, Fed chairman. So these are very disparate events that have no connection or correlation.
Taylor Swift,
yeah. So what I end up doing, a lot of what I do is kind of going through the markets and looking at the pricing and seeing, 9 times out of 10, I'll go up to the market. I'll be like, okay, that price looks fine. I don't need to research this further. But then that 10th time, it's like, this price seems a little bit off. Maybe there's something here. And that could be, whether it's movies or, Israel, Iran, if I think the price is a little bit off, then I start to research it. So it's a process where you're kind of looking at the options available and then making choices on what you want to do, because, the prices are what they are. You don't have to necessarily trade. Just because a market is super popular doesn't mean that you have to trade it. Just because the price is where it is doesn't mean you have to trade it. So trading is your own decision to make. And I'm very picky about it, even though it doesn't seem like it based on the number of positions that I have.
It seems to me like it's almost a kind of like a opinion arbitrage, where you're like looking for a delta in between, what you think and what the crowd thinks, and hoping that you have the better information. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And also, you're going to be wrong a lot, right? So I'm trying to be right more than 50% of the time as an approximation, right? And if I'm right 60% of the time, that's great. I'm making a ton of money, even if I'm losing. I mean, if you lose 40% of your bets, that's, that can take a toll. That's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money out the door. But, you have to look at it as a long-term process where you're trying to make a lot of predictions and you're trying to be better than average. You're not trying to get everything correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And how do you manage all this logistically? Are you using any kind of bots to watch for market movements or price movements? And how are you trading on the go? Are you using MetaMask maybe? Like, what's the logistics of all this?
Yeah, no, I haven't started using MetaMask yet, although I've been playing around with it a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, there's various tools that let you know, okay, the price on this is up 5% today. There's a ton of volume that has come in. The price on this is down. So there's like Twitter accounts that let you know. There's, Discord bots. So there's various things that are pinging you throughout the day, like this price has changed, new markets come up, or whatever the case may be.
But in terms of like actually, clicking and making the purchase or the sale, like you're manually doing all of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. That hopefully that changes for me within the next year. But yeah, as of now, it's still pretty manual.
Okay, wow. So this definitely is probably still a full-time job for you.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and I think there's a degree to which it can be helpful to have the tactile. Like, okay, I'm trading this much, so you're not, because I've seen bots go rogue. And that can be a dangerous situation as well. So you have to be careful, especially when money is at stake.
What's kind of at this point, you've been so successful at this. What's the what keeps you motivated? Is it kind of the game of it all? The reason we all play poker, like the thrill of the win? Like what keeps you doing this when you probably don't really need to?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think at this point it's probably competition, right? And I also really find it fun because each day you're kind of doing something different. Like today I got up and I was looking at what changed in the Fed market. But tomorrow I may wake up and be like, okay, what are the reviews for Avatar looking like? Or 3 days from now, I'm like, okay, did the Oscar odds change? So every day is like kind of an adventure, and maybe someday I wake up and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing today. I guess I'll find out in a few hours what I'm working on. So yeah, it's very it jumps from topic to topic, which is really exciting. But I would say what motivates me is the competition, and because the money is one thing, and obviously money is very important, but it's also kind of a scoreboard. That 2.5 million is like, okay, I essentially have 2.5 million points, and other people are trying to get a higher score than me. So yeah, I would say the competition is probably my number one motivator.
Before I started working in crypto full time, I spent 20 years working as a full-time journalist. And the name of the game with journalism, at least the way it used to be, is cultivating sources. So like finding primary sources of information that you could then spin into a story before anyone else has the story. And it strikes me that would probably be the same thing you would want to do. Do you do that? Do you like spend any time like trying to find out where like the insider information is, who the insiders are, and like kind of cultivating your own sources?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've got so far as cultivating my own sources, but yes, I've definitely, I think I wrote an article about this a few years ago where it's like you have to behave like a reporter sometimes, right? You
Yeah,
have to get to the heart of the story. You have to figure out the various players. And in some cases, yeah, I reach out to people, I'll call them, I'll email them. And, oftentimes people react to that like, well, these people are not going to respond to you. Like they don't like why would they answer your email or phone call? But it's like, well, if this is their whole job in the world, like let's say they're doing, whatever, something with like working on Avatar or something, like they're excited about that. If someone's asking about that,
right.
right, maybe their attitude from day to day is like, oh, my kids think my job is really dumb. This guy is emailing me and he's really excited. Like I'll hop on the phone with him for 5 minutes. So I think overall people are really, interested to talk with you. And so yeah, there's an extent to which I kind of try and do my own research, especially because if I think about, let's say I'm betting $500 on something, like for me, that would not be a super big bet. So I probably wouldn't go into the weeds on it. But if I'm starting to bet like tens of thousands of dollars, and this is like, it becomes a very serious thing and you have to take
Right.
a serious approach to it. And so, yes, I will start thinking about who are the people that I can ask because, if I'm researching something and I'm not an expert, I have to try and become an expert. And so in order to do that, you end up talking to a lot of people that are much smarter than yourself on any given topic. Yeah.
Yeah, having that incentive and that skin in the game is going to force you to do your due diligence. Something that maybe a few more journalists could do as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and I think one thing that's really cool about prediction markets is it kind of holds you to account, right? If you're right, you'll make money. If you're wrong, you'll lose money. And so there's a degree of, truth to what you're doing, which I think is really cool.
Totally. Well, hey, but before we let you go, let's dig into just a couple of the markets that
Okay.
you've been following really closely. We've already been talking about a few of them. So maybe if Joe, if you want to throw the screen up there. So this is quick walk through the MetaMask app here. So this is the MetaMask home screen for folks that haven't used the prediction markets on MetaMask just yet. So it's the home screen. You can predict on tap on predictions right there and go to browse markets. And then that'll get us to, I think it starts on the trending screen. And that's the one we want right there. Who will Trump nominate as Fed chair? And now when we were going through your profile, Domer, a few minutes ago, like you had taken positions on some of these different possible resolutions. So I guess, what's your latest thinking on this one? You said that part of the movement in your account net profit there had something to do with this market in the last 24 hours, right?
Yeah. So one thing about prediction markets, especially in a market like this, which is a really good example, is as you're scrolling through it, there's right. So you have two options here. Number one, you could either bet on somebody getting the job, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna pick Christopher Waller for whatever reason, XYZ, and so I'm gonna bet yes on him. But what I've done in this market specifically is I've bet against Kevin Hassett for various reasons. I don't think it'll be Kevin Hassett. Now, I could easily be wrong, so don't start wagering a lot of money on my opinion. But so that's kind of the opinion that I've taken is I've bet no on him. And then so in essence, you're betting yes on every other person in the world, including every other person within this market. And then the other thing that I've kind of honed in on is I've focused on people that I think are realistic regardless of their odds. And I've kind of picked out Christopher Waller. And then the other person that I think it could be, which is very, a little bit controversial, is Scott Bessent, who is the current Treasury Secretary. Because whenever Trump talks about this, he's like, oh, I wish I could pick Bessent. I wish I could pick Bessent. I wish I could pick Bessent. And Bessent is the one leading the search. Well, very famously, like 25 years ago at this point, the soon-to-be president Bush had Dick Cheney lead his VP search.
I thought you were going there. Okay, yeah, I remember that as well.
Yeah. So and it happens from time to time. It's like a thing. So if Trump is expressing preference for Scott Bessent, and if Scott Bessent's willing to do it, maybe he picks him. Now, whether it's worth 5 cents or 10 cents, I have no idea. But that's somebody that I've been picking up shares in as well, which I think is, if that one hits, that'll be a really cool story.
You think we're going to see this actually happen by the end of the year? I mean, I think most people are saying no, but I have heard maybe the next week.
It can honestly happen at any moment because Trump is pretty mercurial. But I think the current odds are like around 10% to happen for by the end of the year, which I think is right around correct. Whether it's 5% or 15%, I have no idea. But yeah, probably a low probability that it happens this year.
Okay, great. So what about in the next year? What any markets or areas, topics that you're particularly interested in watching in 2026?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that really excites me personally, because it's just something that I'm interested in, is like who's gonna like the Oscars, like Best Picture of the Year. Like as right around the beginning of January is when this starts to ramp up because the TV shows start, like the Golden Globes, and then the nominations come off or come out rather, and so regular people start to become interested in it, like following it, and it becomes like a hotly debated topic as well. So that'll be what I'm turning to towards the beginning of the year, and then obviously towards the end of 2026, the midterms are just going to be a humongous event on prediction markets, and then also obviously in the real world as well.
Just curious why Oscars? I mean, is that something that you have an interest in, or maybe you have like particular sources of information there that you think give you an edge, or is it just that it's like a very high volume market?
I would say all of the above. So number one, I love movies, and my very first bet on prediction markets was on the Oscars. Right, it was on Crash to win Best Picture, which was a big underdog against. It was very controversial, and I won on Crash, and I was like, okay, this is apparently what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so I like movies in general. Number two, yes, it's high volume, and then number three, I do feel like I've been betting on it for so long and reading on it for so long that I do feel like I have an edge over my competitors. Now that doesn't mean that I get everything right, but yeah, and then it's obviously fun to try and predict what these people do. It's not super important in the grand scheme of the world, obviously, but I have fun doing it.
Yeah, I gotta say, this market for Best Picture seems about right to me. One Battle After Another was not my favorite movie of the year. I love Begonia, actually, but I think Hollywood wants to give Paul Thomas Anderson this award for various reasons.
Yeah, well, they can give him Best Director and then switch up to a different movie for Best Picture. That's another possibility as well.
They could. It's kind of a consolation prize, though, isn't it? Like I don't know. It depends.
Yeah,
depends how you look at it.
It does depend. Yeah.
Which one? I'm just curious. Personal preference. Which of these? What's your favorite of the year?
Well, so One Battle After Another. As soon as I finished watching it, I was like, okay, that's game over. But the buzz on Marty Supreme is through the roof, and people who have watched it have like kind of fallen over. And then the other thing that is kind of in the back of my head is I actually saw the world premiere of Hamnet. It was in Telluride, Colorado, and people were like weeping, and I remember the standing ovation, which is a very rare thing in Telluride. Telluride's a very laid back film festival. People are just like chilling, and there's very, very rarely standing ovations, but that one got a standing ovation, so that kind of stands out in my head because it's a very emotional movie. And if there is any movie that upsets, it usually has like an emotional heft to it. That's usually the case where the little bit of a movie that's more artsy or whatever loses out to a movie that has like an emotional heart to it. So those are the two movies that I would be looking out for, and obviously it's reflected in the odds as well that they could upset One Battle After Another.
So are you getting invitations to like premieres and other things that we might see, like influencers or journalists typically get invited to? Because it seems like it would be as important to have you there at a lot of these things. That's
an interesting question. No, I've not gotten any invitations. If you want to help me get an invitation,
okay, well, let's do that. Yeah, because I thought.
But yeah, no,
it would be valuable.
Any research is of my own volition. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So finally, before we let you go, I mean, any other final tips for newer or maybe intermediate prediction market traders who?
Yeah, I mean, the number one tip that I give to people is, like I said, if you scroll through Polymarket, you will find a market on literally anything that you can think of, and you're not forced to trade anything. You're not forced to trade the market that everyone else is trading. Maybe you scroll through and the 500th market interests you. And then, start with a small dollar amount and just play around with it. Because, let's say you deposit $20 and you're just playing. Well, the worst that can happen in the world is you lose $20. That's not that big of a deal. But maybe you find a hobby that you like, and maybe it turns into something where it's a little bit of extra income or whatever. Or maybe you find out that not cracked up to try and do this for, you know, a hobby or whatever. So yeah, I think it's worth trying out for sure. And you know, there's tons of different events, so you can find one that suits you and that kind of matches your interest as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. And hey, good luck in the markets this week and going forward.
Thanks, man.
We'll be watching.
Yeah, I need the luck, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, hey, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to producers Ray and Joe behind the scenes. And again, if you want to check this out, it's right in the MetaMask app. It's actually, I've never seen an easier interface for prediction markets. Don't have to literally one tap funding for the account, and then you're in. So trade away, do your own research, and be careful, but have fun.